Welcome to another episode about all my coloring books, and sadly in this video I will show you books which I love but which I totally neglected during this year. Let's start from this beautiful Tales of Two Mountains, which has very nice pictures inspired by Slavic mythology, fairy tales, but unfortunately it's printed on average paper, so you will need some time to get used to this paper and to find medium which suits better to this paper. I think that as usual when I work on average paper, for me works best to combine markers and pencils. In such way I did this page. It's simple, but I used it simply to fill paper. Paper isn't as thin as in Witch's book. It's similar to Richard Hampson books, so it's normal, but just not for water-soluble art supplies. And it's a pity because there are many pictures where watercolor background would add additional accent to them, but it's totally possible to work with all pencil brands. I love both Prismacolors and Polychromos here, and it's possible to use markers. I have this work, then I have my favorite. I wanted to do it immediately when I saw the flip-through of the book. I purchased this book because of this picture, and look at those two friends probably, and they are very gorgeous in their own way. I do love the rooster, and it was such a pleasure to color such a costume, but I also love cat, and it's fun how he has those sausages and the huge knife, so that's one of the reasons why I love this book. Apart from beautiful line art, beautiful artwork, it also has a lot of humor, and I do love this touch of inspiration from Slavic mythology. And the simplest work which I did here, it was this one. Here I try to do background with Derwent, with Distress inks. It was almost a disaster, and I was happy that I stopped at the right moment and I didn't mess up with the whole background in such way. I love to color metals, so from time to time to do such simple page where I can color something from armor, it's a big pleasure for me. And I do love that many pictures here, they are actually not very complicated, relatively simple, but quite nice. And behind almost each pictures here, you can imagine your own story. Next, I have a couple of books dedicated to mermaids. I don't know, but this May I totally skipped them, even if I still love them a lot. In my opinion, this book, created by Ukrainian artist, by the way, here we have the most beautiful mermaid faces. They were created digitally, not AI, but drawn on some kind of digital pad, and the brand is Kolorowanka, but the artist is from Ukraine. When I just got this book, I started to work here just with pencils. And again, the same quality of Amazon paper, not worst and not best, similar to Hampson books. And you know that to do the whole A4 page with pencils on average paper, it's not my favorite type of thing. I never have enough patience. So after this one, even if I love how I achieved this background and water highlight near the body of mermaid, and I especially love this sinking shipwreckage, well, I decided that no, I can't do it anymore to work only with pencils. So for my future projects here, I started to use markers. Here again, I used a lot of pencils, and even budget pencils. I can clearly recognize here Black Widow, Monarch with their shades, and Arteza pencils. They work well, so the only problem is how to do background if you can't use water-soluble media, which are definitely the best when you need to do water. But I I started to use markers like I did it here, and things started to be better. I colored with a lot of pleasure in this book, but I stopped to color it like almost 3 years ago. I remember clearly that this page, which I started in February of 22, it was the day before war started. So somehow I abandoned this book, obviously, when war started. And when I returned to coloring after several months, I simply forgot about it. I didn't want to return to it. But I love the book, and as I said, I think that faces of mermaids, they are very beautiful. They are not similar, like they are not copied from one page to another. They are beautiful, and pictures also have a lot of very nice animals to surround mermaids. Nice work, nice balance between amount of background and details, so I definitely will return to this book. Look at those lovely fishes, very nicely depicted, everything very well done, so it's definitely a book which I plan to color more. Here we have Mermaids by Martin Noble in different style, slightly similar to children coloring books, and yes, that was printed in the series of coloring books intended for children, but I think that recently, maybe a year ago, they reprinted it as one-sided book. Mine is double-sided, so here again I can't use watercolor, water paints, any paints actually, and markers also, so I have to work with pencils. Good thing is that here pictures are smaller, and here I even managed to work with my budget pencils like Chinese Sucolors, which I used for this tropical mermaid. I absolutely love that apart from pictures we have mermaids from different parts of the world, and she also made some she put here some legends about mermaids from different countries, different cultures. And another one, it's Poland mermaid. She is a guardian of the capital, Warsaw. And here again I used budget pencils. So you can work on this paper, you just need something like blender or burnisher to be able to cover paper better, or maybe to use a little bit more of gouache paint for the background. It's also a lovely book, maybe not my favorite for mermaids, but still lovely because I love Martin Noble. Now I have books by Jade Summer. You can imagine how old colorist I am, because I think that there were times when Jade Summer books, they were extremely popular. Now I'm not even sure that majority of them are available. When they were on the market, I was really disturbed that we don't know the real name of the artist, that we have the trademark Jade Summer, and they used works by various artists. You can see it because the style of the pictures was very different from book to book. Now, when we have the coloring market full of artificial intelligence pictures, I realized that to have brands and not the artist names, that wasn't a problem, but now those ugly books, that's a real problem for coloring books market. Anyway, let's have a look at this one. It was named like Art Nouveau, but pictures here, I would say that they have nothing in common with Art Nouveau style. But as fantasy pictures, they are actually lovely, quite nice, interesting background and very nice images, just not Art Nouveau. Here I used a lot of art supplies. Traditional paper for Jade Summer, similar to Crook, where markers work quite well, and where you can work with pencils, but well, again, you need some kind of blender, and I prefer to use together harder and softer pencils to work on details with harder pencils, or to work on skin, and to cover paper more thoroughly with softer wax-based pencils. So I have this demon Next, I have this Egyptian style girl. And I think that's all actually. Pictures are lovely, but somehow I find it difficult to start coloring here. Sometimes maybe it's confusing because it has many details on the background, but well, I still like it, but just never have enough time for it. Ladies are lovely. Background sometimes is maybe a little bit too busy for my taste, but I think that if you start to do with the lady with the main image and then do background which at least won't distract attention from the main character, it could be nice. But pictures, faces, they are really nice. I don't have many books by Jade Summer, but those which I own, I totally love them. Next, I have this huge book, which I can also recommend from Jade Summer. I think that actually this one was available at least several months ago. And here we don't have duplicates, but we have 4 books in one huge book, so that's why I can definitely recommend it. I would say that pictures were created by different artists, because even style of the pictures are a little bit different, but that's okay. I think that I decided that it's not a problem when they collaborate under a brand mark. At least they are not artificially created. So we have part with mermaids, which I hadn't touched at all. Then we have part about fairies. And when I got the book, I was sure that my favorite part will be about dragons and then about vampires. This was my least favorite part. And now, where I have biggest amount of finished pictures? Here. Again, I love these pictures because you can imagine kind of story behind each of these pictures. Here I imagined that we have this huge warrior bird, and those tiny elves, they help the bird to escape from the ice prison, from the ice cave probably. So that's a challenging moment. They need to escape quickly. I tried to use a lot of warm colors for the bird and tiny elves, and a lot of cold colors for the icy walls of the cave and for the night sky also. And it's mostly pencils. I think that I used markers only somewhere here to blend eyes better, but mostly it's pencils. I'm surprised myself. And actually here, which is my favorite finished work in this book so far, which I called Encounter Between Spring and Winter, I even managed to use acrylic paints for the background, and they went down quite well, even on this paper. So it's a good reminder for myself that acrylic paint you can use even on thin paper. So I do love the color palette here. I deliberately did the spring fairy in the same color of fresh spring grass. I was a little bit disturbed by the faces of wolf or fox, I don't know, and reindeer. They are a little bit humanized, but apart from it, I think that everything else looks lovely. I do love how I did those winter snow background with shapes of trees. And I have this one where I simply wanted to do something crazy, unusual with the grass. So I played with markers, I played with paint. Simple, but I love to do bright pictures. And finally, I have one finished picture in dragon part. And dragons here, they are really lovely in different style with nice details on the background. So I think my only problem is that they mostly are horizontal, so sometimes it's difficult to film them. But I will put this book and book by Ravin Phelan about dragons on my shelf close to my working area, and I promise that I will dedicate next year, if I still color next year, to dragons, because I have many lovely books with dragons created by various artists, so I need to do some work. Look at this lovely picture, very nice, and I would say that it's different artist from those pictures which we have here. It's a pity that this Halloween I didn't have time to do something from the vampire series. They are lovely, a little bit like in anime style, but again, very good balance if you color with markers. Nice amount of details and good areas to do at least the background with markers, and that's probably what I will do with this vampire book, to practice more with markers. Now we are moving to the only one book by Barbara Lanza which I own. I love style by Barbara Lanza, especially faces of her girls, but when I got this book, it was long time ago. I had only pencils and watercolor paints. With this paper, Amazon paper, I realized that I can't use it for the background, those watercolors, so it was extremely difficult for me to color here. And now, when I have much more art supplies, I simply always forget about this book. I managed to do just one page, and I remember that it was a nightmare to blend those pencils smoothly, and especially with dark colors to cover background without white spots. You need to work many times on the same place or to use blender. Well, I did it with Prismacolors. It was not bad, but I realized that it's very time consuming. Now when I have more art supplies, I definitely will do some pictures here. I just need to remind myself that I have such a lovely book. From Barbara Lanza, I love pictures because they have very lovely botanical details, and her girls are also quite lovely. And finally, I have books by D.Klette. I have all apart the last one, and yeah, I thought about purchasing also the last one, but then I chided myself. I reminded myself that I hadn't touched this book during last 2 years, so maybe it's enough for you to have 3 books where you stop to color. Why would you need to purchase the fourth one, even if her line art is very cute even in black and white? I would say that in this pile, the easiest book for me to color is Gnomes, and the most difficult is Fairies. They are so tiny that it's really quite difficult. And also on many pictures there is an empty background. I wasn't very happy how my watercolors paints work on this paper. Not all of them. Some paints which have a white pigment, which are semi-opaque, they work better. You will see it in Fairies. And gouache paints, they work really well. But many blue colors, transparent blue colors, which you need for mermaids, for the backgrounds, they created not very good stains. So that's why I abandoned it. I think that now when I also have Inktense paints in pens, I can return to these books. At least paper here is good for various pencils. I used here both budget pencils and more professional pencils. I remember the huge struggle with watercolor background here. I did several layers and only opaque paints like gouache. They saved my background and helped me to create those icebergs as a background for the mermaids. To color the main heroes, it was absolutely easy. To do the background, it was a nightmare. Surprisingly here, paints worked better. I think that without paints it's really very long to color such a huge size of books, and the style of these pictures where mermaids are surrounded by water, I think that they look much better if you manage to use some water-soluble media for the background. This one I turned into a Christmas picture. For a long time, when I needed to color something for Christmas, I didn't have many Christmas books, so I tried to turn something into Christmas pictures. I added those garlands. I think that actually it looks quite festive. And they also are shiny because I used a little bit of glitter gel pens to add scales to their tails. I think that it was one and only picture where I did pencil background, and even if it looks quite lovely, maybe better, more accurate comparing to previous pictures, I said to myself that no, I simply don't have such patience. Another one where I did a watercolor background and then some fun work with pencils. I love her birds, they are quite lovely. Another one where I struggled to put blue colors in a smooth way on the background. Such an old works. Sometimes it's strange to look at such an old works. But I still love all of them, because I remember that I always had a smile on my face when I colored her body positive mermaids. It's another big plus of this book, that her mermaids, they are beautiful by themselves. And that's my favorite character. I do love how cozy she's sitting, reading. Perfect way to spend time. This one I did using together pencils and Inktense, and that's where I got this idea that maybe Derwent Inktense could be a second chance for these books. Fairies. Here, when I realized that I'm actually not a big fan of pictures by themselves, but it gives me more freedom to experiment with various paints, with various backgrounds. Something went quite nice, like this background which I did with my Arteza gouache, which I really love and can recommend. This one I did with semi-opaque pastel colors of watercolor paint, because of the white pigment blended with red, so you get this pink color. It looks quite nice, and paint worked on this paper in quite smooth way, so it's lovely. Yes, they are simple, but for some color therapy, when you just want to play with bright colors, these books are perfect. Again, background I did with gouache. I messed it up a little bit on the last step, trying to add some sprinkles, but apart from this messy background on top, picture is lovely. And good thing is that on this paper you can work with the cheapest pencils. I worked here with Star Joy, old edition. I worked with some Black Widow pencils and even something cheaper. So even for non-professional pencils, this paper is really good. Here I think that I worked with soft pastel and then with some metal acrylic paints to add those dots. Another one which I did with very budget pencils. Yes, with budget pencils maybe you need to use more pressure to blend for longer time, more carefully, but you can still use them. And I do love to color tropical flowers. And finally, gnomes. Here I remember that I tried to do a graffiti background. They didn't work well at all, so I had to cover them with regular pencils to save this title page. Well, let me look quickly what we have here, because I don't remember myself how many pictures I have here. This one, I think that it's lovely. Again, because I love to color tropical flowers, I love to play with vibrant colors, and those pictures, they were made with colors, with Arteza. It's nice to use your less frequently used sets. It's another one which I absolutely love, with this summer vibe. I end with them with all my heart. I started it and it's lovely. I think that I simply didn't have time. I did it probably last year, or maybe 2 years ago, when we started to have those problems with electricity during winter time. So I simply didn't have time to manage to finish it until the Christmas time. That was very old work, probably my first one, which I did for Christmas. This one I did when I just purchased a set of Arteza pencils, and I realized that they actually are good on this paper. And apart from a little bit of white gouache, the background, this snow and sky, everything is done with Arteza. I love to blend them on this paper. Watercolors and Prismacolors probably. I don't remember. Probably Arteza again. And yeah, I mostly use those watercolor paints which have white pigment, so we have this more opaque cover on the paper. Something which I did with Color Softs, and I think that it's all. No, maybe I have another one. Yes, this quick work where I simply practiced again with watercolors. Nothing good, nothing bad. Oh, I remember I have nice works which I did when lockdown started during COVID time. So I have those countries on lockdown. It was quite fun to do this because here I have, you can see that they all are separated. They sitting at home, but they still have nice time. So I have Italy. I added this soccer ball to represent Italy and flag. Here I have United Kingdom. Unfortunately, there were not enough pictures to represent all countries, but I added crown to the bird and flag. Here we have Germany, and of course they have beer. And we have France. I added a wine, baguette, and their symbol of their soccer team, the rooster. I think that it was fun. At least it helped me to break my own shock from the world situation, this unusual state when everyone were staying at home, the whole world. Very unusual. Oh well, at that time I thought that it's the worst situation. I didn't know about the war. And that's another one where I just wanted to do something quick and bright. I can't say that those works in this book, that they are something special, but to have some fun, to have some color therapy, it's really very nice. And the fourth book is also quite lovely, so maybe if you want to have one book by D.Klette, look at the fourth, because here she added all of her amazing birds and a lot of other fun animals like bears, like pigs, so it also will put a huge smile on your face. Well, thanks for watching this episode, and I will return to you very soon.